My name is Amanda, and I was 27. That night, my father lounged at my kitchen table, smirking. I found the 25,000 in your safe, he said. I spent it on Claire's wedding. Consider it a gift from you. My stomach knotted, heat rising in my chest. I clenched my jaw so tight it ached. Every instinct screamed to explode. But my voice came out flat. Understood. 2 minutes later, Grandpa walked in. Son, where's the money I gave you to keep? Dad went pale. That was the moment everything changed. I wasn't some rich socialite hiding money for fun. I was a licensed electrician, 27, with calloused hands. Long shifts, crawling through attics, rewiring basements. Overtime every single week. The apartment I rented wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. 2 bedrooms, one for sleeping, one for tools and storage. I didn't travel, didn't splurge, didn't chase Instagram dreams. Every extra dollar went into that safe in my closet. Not because I didn't trust banks, but because I didn't trust my family. See, in my house, family helps family wasn't love. It was a one-way obligation shoved down my throat. Dad broke his truck, Amanda pays. Mom had medical bills, Amanda covers. Claire wanted to launch a candle business, Amanda funds the inventory. They never asked nicely. It was always guilt, always pressure, always the unspoken rule. You owe us, we gave you life. That was Dad's favorite line. By 20, I'd learned not to keep savings where they could see. A bank balance was an invitation for Dad to borrow. So I went old school. Cash, tucked away, brick by brick. That 25 grand wasn't luxury. It was my parachute, my emergency exit. It was proof I could build something they couldn't take. But here's the part that always cut the deepest. Claire was the princess. Sweet, fragile, pampered. And I was the background noise. Her problems became center stage. My achievements? Ignored, dismissed, or mocked as masculine. When she cried, the family rallied. When I bled, they looked the other way. Every time I thought I was finally ahead, something urgent dragged me down. Overtime checks gone, side jobs erased, savings drained. And the worst part? They acted like it was natural, like that was my role. The provider. The fixer. The invisible daughter with deep pockets. So when Dad sat there smirking, calling it a gift, it wasn't just theft. It was confirmation of every insult, every dismissal, every manipulation. To him, my years of sweat weren't mine. They were just family resources, waiting to be redirected. I thought locking my savings in a safe would protect me. I thought boundaries meant safety. I was wrong. Claire's wedding had been doomed from the start. Not the marriage, not the love story, the budget. She wanted the kind of day you see in glossy magazines. Waterfront venue, imported flowers. A live band that charged more than my annual rent. $60,000 easy. Her fiancé worked part-time at a sporting goods store. Claire worked at a boutique, more interested in Instagram posts than paychecks. But every time they hit a wall, Dad swooped in. Don't worry, we'll make it work, he'd say. Translation: Amanda will make it work. I kept quiet, biting my tongue until it bled. Because I knew the pattern. Family emergency, Amanda's savings. But this time, the numbers didn't add up. Even if Dad sold his boat, even if Mom took out a loan, they still couldn't cover Claire's champagne dreams. So where was the money coming from? I had a sick feeling I already knew. That safe in my closet. The one place I thought was untouchable. Dad had been in my apartment before. Fixing the window, he said once. Dropping off groceries another time. Always with some casual excuse to let himself in. I should have known. For months, I tried convincing myself I was paranoid. No way he'd actually cross that line. But deep down, I knew better. I'd seen him bend rules my whole life, always justifying it with family helps family. And Claire? She never asked where the money came from. She didn't care. As long as the flowers arrived and the venue sparkled, she was happy to stay blind. I worked double shifts that summer, sweating through heavy gloves, pulling wire until my arms ached. Each paycheck was supposed to inch me closer to independence. Instead, I felt the walls closing in. Like no matter how hard I worked, my family would always find a way to drain me dry. But there was one factor they hadn't accounted for. Grandpa, my dad's father, old school, sharp-eyed, a man who built everything he had from nothing. He valued honesty more than comfort. I'd seen him cut ties over $500 and a lie. The man didn't bluff. A few months earlier, Grandpa had sold a piece of land. He gave Dad 25 grand in cash to hold temporarily. Said he didn't trust banks while sorting out estate papers. I hadn't known that detail until the day Grandpa walked into my apartment. But in hindsight, it explained everything. Dad hadn't just stolen my safety net. He'd gambled with Grandpa's trust too. He thought he could smooth it over, spin some story about family generosity, make me swallow the loss like always. What he didn't count on was Grandpa walking in at the exact wrong moment. Or me finally being too tired, too raw, too done to stay silent. The second Grandpa asked about his cash and saw the way Dad froze. I knew. For once, this mess wouldn't land on me. It would land squarely on him. Grandpa didn't waste time with pleasantries. He leaned on his cane, eyes narrowing at my father. "Son," he said evenly, "the money I gave you, where is it?" The color drained from Dad's face. He shifted in my chair like it suddenly burned. "Dad, it's not what you think." Grandpa raised a hand. "I know exactly what I think. I gave you 25,000. Cash, counted with your signature on the note." He set a folded paper on my table, his handwriting unmistakable. My chest tightened. This wasn't just about my stolen savings anymore. This was about betrayal stacked on betrayal. Dad tried the smirk, the shrug, his old tricks. It was sitting there doing nothing. I thought I'd combine it with Amanda's for the wedding. Family helps family, right? The rage in my stomach turned molten. I'd heard that line my whole life. But this time, it wasn't me who answered. It was Grandpa. "Helps family?" His voice cracked like a whip. "You took from your daughter. You stole from me. That's not helping, that's thieving." Dad bristled. "Steal? You'd call your own son a thief?" I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. My voice didn't waver. "That's exactly what it's called. You didn't ask. You didn't offer to repay. You decided my years of sweat belonged to Claire's wedding cake." For the first time, Dad didn't look like the man in charge. He looked cornered. His eyes flicked from me to Grandpa, desperate for one of us to back down. Neither of us moved. Grandpa's jaw set. "You'll replace it. Every cent, with interest." Dad's voice rose, the old intimidation creeping back. "You can't demand that of me." "I can," Grandpa snapped. "That cash was mine. And Amanda's savings were hers. You treated both like your personal wallet. Now you'll pay it back. Or I'll make sure the whole family, and the law, knows exactly what you did." The room went silent except for Dad's ragged breathing. Mom wasn't there to shield him. Claire wasn't there to whine for sympathy. It was just the three of us. And for once, the weight wasn't on my shoulders. I folded my arms. "Let me make this clear. I want my 25 back too. I don't care if you sell your car, cancel the honeymoon, whatever. This time, I'm not carrying the loss." His glare snapped to me, hot and sharp. "Do you really want to humiliate your sister? Do you want her big day ruined because you're making a scene?" I almost laughed. "You already ruined it for me when you stole from me. The wedding isn't my problem. Getting my money back is." That was the breaking point. Dad sagged into the chair, the fight draining out of him. He looked small, like a man who'd finally realized he'd picked the wrong battle. Grandpa tapped the table once with his cane. "We're done here. You'll hear from me with details." He gave me the smallest nod, like a soldier acknowledging another. And in that moment, I felt it. For once, the fallout wasn't mine to carry. It was his. The next week, Grandpa followed through. A lawyer, his lawyer, sat at my kitchen table. He slid papers across the wood. "Repayment agreement. Principal, interest, strict deadlines. Miss one payment, and the full balance becomes due." Dad's hands shook as he flipped through the pages. "This is insane. You expect me to sign my life away?" Grandpa's cane tapped once. "No, I expect you to return what you stole." The lawyer added, "Fail to comply, and we pursue legal action." I sat across the table, arms folded. For once, I wasn't the one cornered. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. But my face stayed calm, unreadable. "You can't do this," Dad turned to me, desperate. "Amanda, do you really want to ruin your sister's wedding? Do you want her crying on her big day?" I met his eyes, steady. "You ruined it the second you took my money. Claire's happiness isn't my responsibility." His jaw clenched. "You're selfish." "Selfish," I said, "is stealing from your own daughter. This is me saying no." Grandpa's voice cut through. "Enough, sign it." Dad hesitated, then finally scribbled his name. The first time he signed something not in his favor. Word spread fast. Mom called, voice sharp. "How could you do this to your sister? You're tearing this family apart." "Dad tore it apart when he stole," I replied. "I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen." Then Claire called. "Do you want to bleed Dad dry? Walk me down the aisle knowing my own sister punished him? You want someone to blame?" I said. "Look at the man who stole from both of us. Not me." She sobbed and hung up. But the payments came. The first installment hit my account 2 weeks later, with a bitter note. "Transferred. Happy now?" I didn't reply, but I knew what it cost him. Uncle called, chuckling. "Your dad sold his boat, the one he bragged about every summer. Gone." I smiled. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because, for once, the consequence wasn't mine to carry. It was his. At gatherings, Mom glared, Claire hissed, Dad sulked. But Grandpa stood like a wall. When relatives murmured, "Amanda's too harsh," he shut it down with 5 words. "She's protecting what's hers." And that was the shift. For the first time, I wasn't the villain. For the first time, I wasn't the scapegoat. I was the daughter who drew the line. And deep inside, I knew this battle was the first time I'd truly chosen myself. The first payment cost him his boat. The next would cost him even more. By the time the last payment cleared, nearly a year later, the silence in my life felt lighter than the chaos ever had. Dad barely looked at me at gatherings. Claire still muttered sharp comments, but they carried more bitterness than power. Mom tried guilt, but her words slid off me like rain on glass. Grandpa, though, he treated me differently. "About time you stopped carrying their weight," he said, handing me the keys to one of his rentals. Not a burden, a partnership. The irony wasn't lost on me. The family that drained me lost my trust. The one man I once feared now trusted me with his legacy. I rebuilt, opened a safe deposit box. No more hiding cash under mattresses. No more lying awake, wondering when the next emergency would strip me bare. The truth is, I didn't just get $25,000 back. I got clarity. That my peace is worth more than their approval. That saying no doesn't make me cold. It makes me free. Now, when my phone lights up with Dad's name, I don't feel my stomach knot. I know the answer before the ask. No, not angry, not guilty. Just a boundary, clear and final. So here's my message. You're not wrong for saying no. You're not cruel for setting limits. Family isn't defined by who takes from you. It's defined by who respects you. If you've ever had to choose between peace and family approval, you know how heavy that feels. But choosing yourself is worth it. Your story might not look like mine, but if you've ever whispered no and felt the room turn against you, understand this. You're not alone. Have you ever had to draw that hard line? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to know how you found your strength. And if this story spoke to you, subscribe to Echoes of Life for more stories of betrayal, boundaries, and the freedom of saying no. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you'll ever do is simply stop carrying what was never yours.